I recently watched a video by Chris Williamson on YouTube. Go check him out. We have the links. He's interviewing somebody, and they brought up a stat that surprised even me. And I'm red pilled and I'm black pilled, and I'm very familiar with these things. But they said that by 2030, and I don't know that they said this, but I assume this means the United States because this can't possibly be the refer to the entire planet. By 2030, 45% of women will be single and childless. So almost half of women will not be fulfilling the basic role of a woman in like, in an evolutionary sense, right? In evolutionary sense, we're just meat bags walking around trying to propagate the DNA that's inside of us, correct? I mean, we know how evolution works. That's what we are, essentially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
half of us, almost half of women, will not be fulfilling that. And just keep in mind, in the length of human history, almost all women have reproduced. Now, this isn't, it's not pleasant to say, but this isn't necessarily because of their choice. Always, in all of human history, like if you're a woman, you're gonna have to reproduce, most likely, right? Somebody will, coerce you or force you or something, right? Or you'll need to, or you'll be really incentivized to do so because you cannot even survive without getting a man, procreating, etc., being part of the tribe. But now we have first world countries. Women have jobs, they have freedom, they have safety nets, they have birth control, and it's their choice. It's their choice. And what we see is that women are choosing not to have children or even to be with men at increasing rates. And this is relevant for a lot of reasons. Number one, a lot of guys they're going to find it tough to find a woman. Number two, just the thing we were just talking about, birth rates are going to tank. Birth rates are going to tank. And how will we even get replacement level population? And like I said earlier, we don't necessarily need replacement level population, but we can't let it fall off a cliff, which is exactly what it appears to be doing. And this is going to be a huge demographic problem in the United States. There's just going to be at some point a bunch of old people and very few young people. And we're going to live to see that. So I don't know.
At least at that point, the left is going to have to confront the certain realities about handouts.
Yeah, probably. There's just the welfare state will need a serious re-examining because so many people will depend on it. Like it's frightening when you think about people always say things like, well, X percentage of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. X percent of Americans have $600 in savings. X percent of Americans only have this much saved for retirement. It's always bad. It's never enough money, and you just wonder when you're 70 years old, what is to be done? You can go ahead and say, well, we'll just have a safety net. We'll just pay for like y-
The thing is, your money is going to be useless if there aren't people producing things to
right.
buy.
Exactly. Your money is useless. People often think about um well, for the people who are even thinking about it in the most superficial sense, when they say inflation is happening, usually even the dumbest person can say and identify that, oh, it's because we're printing money. There's more money. That's why there's inflation. Yes, that's a big issue. But on the other side of it, another cause of inflation is there's not enough stuff to buy. There's not enough services to buy. So you can imagine if we have a country that's like 80% old people and they all need a nurse because they're freaking old, right? And only 20% of people are young, and only X percent of those people are nurses, the supply of nurses just went way, way down. It's going to be a problem for society to have this imbalance. Oh, what was I talking about before? Oh yeah, the other half of inflation is there's not enough stuff to buy, and there's this large number of people with money ready to go who want this thing. What's going to happen to the price of nursing? It's going to
Yeah,
skyrocket, obviously,
it's going to go
right?
through the roof. Yep.
Yeah, what's going to happen to all sorts of things that people want because there's not people even that even like people is anybody making stuff like all the stuff you want you could have all the money in the world if you do a thought experiment this makes it really obvious, right? what if there's what if the population of the earth went down to two people and one person had pretty much all the money. So whatever that is, like $80 trillion, okay? And the other person was the only one who could make like a pencil or a pot or whatever, right? Or could start a fire or could cook or whatever, or had a service or can make an item that the trillionaire really wants or needs, right? What would happen to the price of that thing? It would go up to like $4 trillion, right?
it would
Right?
it would just depends how bad that person needs it, but basically it could just go up to all the money he had.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. So when we talk about, well, it'll be okay when I'm old because I had a great career and I made a lot of money and I'll be fine. Like, okay, but if there are not enough young people making the stuff that we need, and there's a bunch of old people who, quote unquote, made good money in their careers during their life, it's not necessarily it's not gonna inoculate you against this because then you just might experience ridiculous inflation because there's not enough people producing and there's all these people consuming. Prices are just gonna go up. You can have all the money in the world. That's just gonna increase the prices most likely, right? Because it's just a ratio of how much money that is behind the demand versus the supply of what it is they want or need. And I
Hey,
don't think a lot of people understand this.
I thought somebody in that video made a pretty interesting observation
Which
about
video?
how the one with the mating crisis one.
Oh, the Chris Williamson video? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
His guest.
Uh, yeah, his guest, right? I think it was his guest who pointed out that the yeah, I'm not sure if it was his guest or if it was Chris, but somebody pointed out that kind of the female version of success has kind of become the same as the male version of success,
Yeah, I'd
which
agree with
which I
that.
find yeah, which I find very ironic. But the question I have about that though is have women always desired quote unquote success like this? Or do you think that's been, again,
That's
influenced
just
by
what the people they've
social?
been sold by. Yeah. I think I think the answer is no. I mean, I can't say that strongly, but I think most women in
Like, if you just go
uh
back in time, let's say, you ask, yeah,
in a vacuum without the influence of social media, of media, of modern society, I think without those influences, I think the natural inclination of women, what they want is to have children. I really think
yeah,
that's what it
yep,
is, you know? It's
yeah.
just we are animals and men want to create children, women want to create children. Like I said before, we're meat bags who just want our DNA to continue, and and that's one of the big mechanisms where our DNA continues, right? Number one, surviving. Number two, thriving. Number three, propagating. I think that is what makes them happy, you know. And this bill of goods they've been sold is not going to fulfill a lot of women, even if they
It'd
tell
be,
themselves that they are being fulfilled.
yeah, it would be interesting to see some evidence about this. I don't know, it's like interviews of women
Hmm.
from, I don't know, 1920s or or whatever. You ask them, what do you think?
Well,
What does it mean to be a successful
right.
person? And you
Well,
listen to
the
what they say.
SSRI use and the rates of depression in women in America have just gone up. That's just a correlation, but I don't. I think they're related. I think it's.
Hmm.
I think that's definitely related.
Hmm.
We
Yeah, I
tell them
agree.
this is what they need to be happy, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's like I don't understand. It's like telling somebody that the key to happiness is to wear an orange hat 6 days out of the week, and they believe you, and lo and behold, it's not fulfilling, right? And even worse, the orange hat like gives you cancer or something. That's basically what's going on here, and we have a whole society that's buying into it, and they're just ignoring their natural impulse of what they want, which is to have children, have families. They I don't know why it is. A lot of people will say, the conspiracy theorists will say, oh, this was done by somebody in power to double the tax base. I don't know if that's true. I mean, before women worked, it's not like we got fewer taxes. Just men made more money and just taxed the men. So I'm not sure that they just want to increase the tax base. But I'm not sure what it is. I think part of it And this is also a very conspiracy theorist thing, is that people in charge, what they want is control. And it is difficult to control a nuclear family because a nuclear family is kind of a very independent unit, right? There's a mother, a father, and children, and they have their own values. For a long time, these values came from the church. So powerful people, well, unless they were at in the church, couldn't really control this family unit. They can't be controlled, and they just operated so much more independently, you know. And they instilled values in the children. So if you wanted the next generation to believe X, it was really hard because how can you get the next generation to believe X when they spend the vast majority of time with their mother and father? Their values will come from their mother and father, of course. Well, if you break apart this dynamic, if you break apart the nuclear family, then everybody's so much more atomized. Everybody is just like a silo, and they're more easily influenced, more easily controlled. That's totally conspiracy theory stuff, but I tend to
Yeah.
believe it's true. I think it's true. I think there's some truth to that. People are more easily controlled when they don't have a strong family unit to fall back on. You know, like picture the difference between your typical 20 something, 30 something New Yorker who's single, doesn't talk to his family very often. Did I say New Yorker? I said New Yorker, right? Living in New
Yeah.
York, right? And they don't have strong family ties. They're not religious. Where they're getting their values from? Where are they getting their cues from? Who's controlling them? Who's influencing them? Could be media, could be the government, could be all sorts of things. Versus contrast this with a person who is like an Amish person, just go to the extreme. An Amish person who doesn't watch your stupid TV, doesn't watch your stupid, consume your stupid social media. You know, they have a mom, they have a dad, they talk to them all the time. They have brothers and sisters, they talk to them all the time. They have family gatherings. Um, who influences them? Who shapes them? That family unit shapes them. That immediate family shapes, like your extended family will shape that person. Uh, you can't really control that person. You can't really turn that person into whatever it is you want to turn them into. So you need to get rid of it. So you need to get rid of it. And you know what? This isn't even a.
I
This isn't
still,
even.
I mean,
I don't even think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I still, I agree, but I mean, I still feel like the death of the family is kind of a side effect and not necessarily something that they're trying to.
Not intentional.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not
When you
sure it
say
is,
it's
but
intentional, it really does seem conspiracy
it does. But
theorist.
keep in
Yeah.
mind that this is straight from the playbook of like Marxist and Maoist, right? If you're familiar with how Mao ran the Cultural Revolution, he encouraged children to betray their parents, the dissolution of the family unit,
Mm.
loyalty not to your father, to your mother, to your family, but loyalty to the state.
Hmm.
This was very intentional, and he didn't do this. At least Mao. I'm not saying that this has happened in America or whatever, but I'm just telling you about a playbook that happened elsewhere where it was intentional to make sure people are loyal to the state and its ideology and not to their family. But they had to break down the family first. They couldn't just say, hey, today you're all loyal to the state, right? We're more important, right? No, you can't. You had to destroy the family unit first. And they had a multitude of ways that they did it. Um, making your children inform on parents in the Cultural Revolution is one of them, right? I remember I think I shared this story with you. There was a story where there's a man who lived through the Cultural Revolution, maybe 55 now, over 50 at least. And when he was a kid during the Cultural Revolution, but he informed on his mother because she had counter-revolutionary ideas. Very typical. Like if you said something like you disagreed with the state, then you're a counter-revolutionary. Well, how would the state know? Such a big country, lots of people in China. Well, they encourage people to be loyal to the state and inform on their family, and that would make you even more superlatively, communist. And he did that. And I think the result is his mom died. So he basically killed his mom, and now
Hmm.
he regrets it. He has guilt or whatever. And I mean, I don't feel that bad for him. Yeah, I guess he was a kid, so he couldn't, you can't totally blame him. But it's just this type of thing in other parts of the world, it has been intentional. I don't want to say for sure it's intentional here, but it wouldn't surprise me because the playbook has been written and the playbook has been successful. So why wouldn't it be repeated? I don't see any reason why. That's just something to think about as far as
But but the incentives are a little different, are they not? I mean,
like what the
if you're
incentives
talking
here
about
versus
if you're
there.
talking about yeah, exactly. There were certain people in power back then, I guess,
Hmm.
who actually had this incentive to break the family unit because it was directly opposed to their power, basically.
Well,
Um,
I would say that there it's possible that people in this country were forward thinking enough to lay down a plan where they realize that the nuclear family is an obstacle. And what we can do to dissolve that is good for what we want to place on top of it or to replace it with. I think it's totally I think it's possible. I don't have any evidence. There's no there was a council of people and their faces were in shadows and they talked about this. No, I don't know any of that. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me because this playbook has been, it's been established, and just people. Oh, there's another thing they talked about in the Chris Williamson video where they
mhm.
said this is remarkably similar to Brave New World. Now I'm sure you read it. Do you remember what it
I
was?
have read it. I have read it, but this
You
was
just don't
actually
remember it.
in high school. I don't remember anything almost.
Okay, but so like they said, Brave New World people were just they were very hedonistic. They were very atomized. They were just I'm just an individual and I just live life for me and I I take this drug because it feels good. I have sex with random multiple people because it feels good. I just whatever I do is self-serving and somehow this also serves the interests of the state because each person presumably can be more easily controlled, right? Just like it's basically the same thing I've been talking about. But
Hmm.
that's one of the subtexts of Brave New World and it does seem to me that somebody, not necessarily intentionally, maybe this is just totally random, but as a society, that's what we are trying to do. We're trying, we're trying to create this is the society that exists in Brave New World, where people have very few human ties, very little sense of obligation or responsibility or duty to anybody else. Everybody's just sort of living for themselves, and I'll be frank, I'm a fairly selfish person, so I'm not like the way I live my life personally is not, you know, that different than this. I mean, I grew up, in modern times, so I'm not immune from these sorts of things. And I think you would agree. You're a somewhat selfish person too. Like we're
I would
not
go, yeah, more than somewhat selfish.
okay. So, and part of that is just the times that we grew up in. If we grew up in 1850 or whatever, I bet we would feel a lot more duty to country and God and family, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure of
Hmm.
it because those were the values that society stressed at the time that were useful at the time. For whatever reason, people in power right now don't find those values useful and they're not being stressed and they're trying to create a society where, just like Brave New World, where it's so atomized, where everybody's just sort of selfish and hedonistic and just they don't feel any obligation or duty to anything.
When did you first read Brave New World?
High school.
High school. Was it required reading?
It was.
Okay. The only reason why I actually read Brave New World is because this girl I had a crush on in high school told me it was her favorite book.
Oh, so you were a simp even back then.
Yeah. But the reason why I brought that up is I'm wondering, what do you think, what does that say about a person if they're telling you, while they're in high school or whatever, that their favorite book is Brave New World?
um, well, that's a very personal question because it was my favorite book. Um,
Interesting.
I also liked Scarlet Letter.
Hmm.
So
So yeah,
obviously,
so what did
so
you like
from
about Brave New World?
I guess what I liked about it was how it assaulted my assumptions about society and how it should be built.
Hmm.
I identified these sorts of patterns even when I read it at first, although at that time I didn't think, oh yeah, this is a real problem. Everybody's atomized. Everybody's hedonistic. This was, I don't want to give away how long ago it was I read it, but that didn't feel like a huge problem at the time. There was no Tinder, for instance, you know? So at the time, I felt like, why shouldn't everybody just be free? Why shouldn't everybody just live for themselves? That seems like a totally just and productive and it's a fine way to live. It's just a fine way to go about your life and even to structure a society upon. But Brave New World really challenged that. It said, no, this is a dumb way. This is a dumb
Hmm.
way to construct your society, and this is the type of person that it will produce, just empty, vacuous, worthless, just going from seeking one pleasure to the next. That's no way to live, and that's no type of human being you want your society to create. It was a challenge to what I assumed was perfectly fine.
Hmm.
Was just the moral, everybody's free to do whatever. That was my attitude.
Hmm.
And it was the first time that I encountered a book that said, no, everybody should not be free to do whatever. There are rules, and they often exist for good reason. And now you guys have strayed too far from the path of God, and you're fucked now.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that as a religious person. I'm not religious, but you get the message. That's sort of the message of it, right?
Yeah.
You people have strayed too far. You have no values now, and this is where you're at. It's empty.
Yeah. I think with what you just said in mind, I mean, it sounds like a very interesting book. I have to go back and reread
Well,
it.
yeah, it's short. It's easy to read. So
I remember back then I didn't really get it.
yeah, that's a problem with a lot of required reading in high school. You don't. The people are not old enough to get it.
Yeah, you need to have a certain level of maturity, which I
Yeah,
definitely did not have.
I remember reading books, and I can't say like specifically which ones, but anything that was family drama or something like, oh, I've been I've been separated from my family or something, my son hates me or something like that.
Hmm.
Some kind of drama like that. I just thought was the most boring shit on earth.
Hmm.
I'm like, who gives a fuck that your
Yeah.
son hates you? Like, what? Where are the explosions? Where are the aliens? Somebody needs a sword, and
Hmm.
the fate of the world needs to be in peril or something for this to be interesting to me.
But that's most books I think that are required reading in high school. For example, I couldn't care less about war novels, and
Well, yeah,
war
like
was a pretty
yeah.
common theme.
I think a lot of books were human drama, just so and so, it's just very human oriented drama. I think most great literature does address
Yeah.
that. One of my favorite novels, Old Man and the Sea, like on the surface is just about nothing. Um, but when you grow older, you start to appreciate these things just so much more. You don't need action, or when I say action, I don't even mean big explosions or something. Just, plot movement. You don't necessarily need a lot of that to be interested in a book. It can be about things, and you can appreciate that. But that's just because you've lived a lot more life, and you can appreciate how these themes impact you and the human condition, and you understand. You can make those connections to not only your life but also human life. Whereas when you're a teenager, you really need drama spelled out for you to like it.
Yep.
Otherwise, it just reads as boring. And for that reason, it's unfortunate. I think it's still good to make kids read this stuff, but unfortunately, it's not at the time that they can appreciate it.
Yeah. I think it was taught poorly. I think there are ways that it could have been taught that would have reached me, for example.
That's probably true
Uh,
too, but we've
yeah. So
established
this is,
that
I
most
mean,
teachers
yeah,
suck.
yeah. I mean, this is a tangent now, but and I don't know if I've told you this or given you this opinion before, but I feel like I learned a lot about, I don't know, literature is not the right word, but
Hmm.
just, I don't know, maybe literature is the right word, or maybe I learned about plot or books or whatever from actually watching anime.
Hmm.
And especially when I try watching like a really long series, it's in any super long series, like I don't know, One Piece, Naruto, or whatever, they have there's this phenomenon of quote unquote filler episodes, right?
Hmm.
Where the character just you could call it like boss of the week or something like that, where the character just goes out and fights some dude, destroys whatever the monster is, and then you repeat that ad
Hmm.
nauseum, right? But then what I realized after watching many of these type of episodes is I start to think, why is it that these episodes aren't that interesting, right? They just seem like what makes them filler exactly? And the reason is that they don't actually advance the overall story,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So it really highlights in a basic way sort of things that are filler and things that aren't. And I think if
Yeah.
I had this kind of appreciation, or if I had been exposed to this example, and again, like I said, it's a very down to earth, direct example that I think even the dumbest high schooler could be able to appreciate it if they just spent a little bit of time on self-reflection. Like, why are these episodes more interesting than these other episodes?
Hmm.
I think that would have helped me look for the same pattern in novels. But yeah,
Well,
I kind of wish I
if
could go back and
if you had a good teacher, I didn't have good teachers. I had like failed drama people and just really disinterested teachers.
Mhm.
So I didn't have that, and unfortunately, it seems like current students don't have that either because they mostly have woke teachers that just want to teach them their ideology or talk about their gender. You know, they're
Yeah.
they're they're very no. That's not fair. I wouldn't say there's very few teachers that want to teach you about literature and really give you an appreciation of it. But they seem to have many other priorities right now. I think that's fair to say.
hmm So
Well,
there's another thing about this Chris Williamson video. I somehow like this is something. This is not a completed thought, but I somehow feel that this observation that female success has kind of become defined as the same thing as male success, that somehow feels contradictory to me. When you listen to a lot of women, they'll say they want to be loved for who they are. I haven't quite been able to pinpoint the contradiction, but
well,
somehow these two things feel contradictory to me.
they do because it seems like men never say that, right? They never say, "I just want to be loved for who I am." Men are fully accepting of the fact that they have to make themselves into something that's valuable to women, to
Hmm.
society, right? They have
Do
to
men
become
really never say
something.
that?
Well, maybe these days, maybe some men who are fully on board with this woke ideology think that, oh yeah, whatever I do, even if I'm a bum who lives in my mom's basement, people should love me.
Right, right.
But most men throughout history have not had that attitude. They understood that, well, you're a bum. Maybe if you get a job and you're a productive person, you can get back to me and we'll find you a person that loves you. But for right now, you're a bum, so no one's gonna love you. Sorry. That generally in history has been the attitude of men. Maybe now that's changing, for the worse.
hmm
But so that's the contradiction you're thinking of. But the thing is, I don't think women are saying that being accepted or loved for who they are is what they feel is success. They think success is, making money, having power, just like men have thought
Yeah,
for a long
so this
time.
is this is related. Maybe I don't know if it's directly related, but I think this also is a demonstration, or I don't know, it's a symptom that women don't really understand what men are looking for in women,
Oh yeah,
right?
they don't.
Like basically they're posting I don't know, travel photos, let's say, right? And then so I mean, what message is that sending to
Yeah,
other people? Like
they
like
think men want a
I
boss babe, this
or or
career
or
woman.
or do they think men want to should I like this person because they're a traveler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like none of that stuff really matters, right?
Well, that's a good place to wrap it up.